Yeah, so I'm the economist. I'm the guy that comes up with the today I want to the thing market and then look at some renewable bills to see how they operate and if there's that. Okay, so the overview of first, look at the market for bioplastics, since it's even more specifically, not bioplastics, but the bioplastic containers. I mean, there's really not a market, so there's not a lot of information we have, and that's the trick. And I guess that's why I get paid the big bucks, to try to figure out how to figure out what the size of the market is going to be. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Then I want to look at the ethanol market, and then this biomass crop assistance program as sort of two ways that the two markets that have been established using biorenewable materials, and sort of what can we learn from how those markets were established and how they operate. So first, by market for the bioplastic containers. So just to give a little bit of context, we are talking about moving from a hydrocarbon petrochemical-based plastic to the bioplastics. This is from the Energy Information Administration. They say that in 2010, about 190 million barrels of liquid petroleum gases and natural gas liquids, I guess they have to, were used in the United States to make plastic products in the plastic materials and resin industry, equal to about 2.7% of total U.S. consumption. So that's all plastics that are used in the U.S., so they don't have data for the rest of the world. And it's about 2.5% of the total petroleum use in the U.S. So it's not huge, and that's for the all the plastics. Then when we drill down to the plastics in into the plastics used in the green industry, we see that nursery pots, flats, and cell packs use about 320 million pounds of plastic annually. So we've seen that before. So it's a lot, but relative to everything, it's not huge. But I think the important thing that we need to keep in mind is that the container-grown plants represent 2/3 of the overall production value. So it's 2/3 of their costs are. It says, sorry. Let me say that of all the plants grown, 2/3 of them are grown in containers. So this has the potential to be an important market.
Where did you get that statistic?
I don't know off the top of my head,
Okay.
but I can get it and send it to you.
Yes,
So I have it on my computer. Yeah, I have the references on my computer, so I can get that to you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the first thing we need, well, one thing we need to know about sort of bioplastics and bioplastic containers is how eager are the producers to adopt this technology. So looking at growers, so sort of look at the market. I want to look at the market in two ways. First, I want to look at the growers, think about sort of what the producers, how do they perceive the bioplastics or the need for bioplastic, and then I want to look at the consumers and try to figure out, how much are the consumers willing to pay. So first of all, the growers. So these are all coming from a series of papers that were written by a group that we're looking at. I'll show you in the next slide or two at a specific type of biopot. So they asked the growers, just a sort of survey, what do you think about do you use bioplastic containers, or biodegradable containers, I guess, and would you like to use them? It was interesting to see that 14.4% of the producers that they surveyed, and I have no, they claim that it's a representative sample. I have no reason to doubt that. 14% of the growers are currently using some sort of biodegradable plant container. Only 12% more would like to use them. So that's about a quarter of the producers, of the growers who are going to be using these things and putting them into practice, have sort of given indication that they would like to, or they are, or they have some sort of a preference and they're leaning in that direction. So only three-quarters of the producers didn't, and said they're not leaning that in this direction. And why is that? The big question is, they also felt that they had insufficient knowledge about the potential financial effects. So it's not just preferences. We like to have these materials. We'd like to have something a little bit more eco-friendly, but are we going to be able to survive and make a profit with these materials? Until we can demonstrate that, I think that's really going to be the linchpin in adoption of this new technology. But the market itself, it's a small market, but there is a market, I think, for the biorenewable pots. And here's a list of different containers, their names here, what they're made out of here, and the website. So we can see that there is a little bit of a market. Maybe we can get some information from looking at this market that's grown so far and look at how sort of price, or how competitive are they, how they priced it. It is, I think, sort of telling that you can list all of the products on one slide, so it's not a huge market. And so the next question is how? How are we going to figure out what the consumer is willing to pay? Ultimately, I think it's the consumer demand. Supply is going to matter too, but I think it's for adoption, it's the consumer demand that's going to determine the price. So how do we get that? Well, one way to do that is just to ask the consumers. And this is work done by that same group of researchers, where they presented a survey, an online survey, to a group of not representative people, but a group of people nonetheless, and they showed them pictures of the pots. The flowers are supposed to be identical. They photoshopped them into each container so that we could look at. So the survey, or the consumer is shown a straw container, a plastic container, so a traditional plastic container, the rice hull container, and then a wheat, what is it? It says PLA, or wheat straw container is what it said. So the customer's going through the survey. They're shown these different types. They're told a little bit of information about what the different types are, and then they're asked to sort of say, well, what do you think on a scale of 1 to 10? How important is price to you? Which one would you prefer to buy? On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is the carbon footprint? And so going through that in a hypothetical exercise where the consumers are given, they're faced with a real product, we ask the consumers what they're willing to pay. Now this group was able to sort of segment the market into, I think there's 7 different segments there. So this is how they defined it based on the feedback they got from this survey questionnaire. First, and the largest segment, are the non-discriminating. These essentially this group are those who are at the mean. These are the average. These are the people that sort of don't really care about one characteristic over another. They seem to just want to buy a plant, I guess. Second is what they called the rice hull likers. Third, which is interesting for the economist, is the price conscious, because again, for an economist, I'll just tell you my bias right up front. I feel like, and several people have expressed this, price matters a lot. And even if people say it doesn't matter, when it comes to the cash register, time to buy the plant, price does make a difference. So just 13%, however, revealed that they were really, that was the most important thing to them, was the price. 10%, they labeled as sort of the environmentally conscious, where the environmental characteristics and the sustainability of the containers were the most important factor. And then some straw likers, straw dislikers, 8% each of the market. And finally, carbon sensitive was a small group, and this group is sort of a hodgepodge because it's not carbon sensitive in just one direction. It's not just that they want a low carbon footprint. it's sort of carbon sensitive in two directions. So this is sort of an odd group down here at the bottom. But this is sort of what the market's going to look like. We're going to have a market that has consumers that have different priorities when they go to the cash register that are maybe weighted like that. Yeah.
Barrett, I'm sorry. I just
Go ahead.
Question. Non-discriminating, so they were solely making the purchase decision based upon the plan?
Well, that's my inference. All it is this was a group where the characteristics were average. So all the rest of them were sort of, how does this group look different from the rest? And so these other groups had sort of one specific characteristic that stood out. That is just sort of the general crowd. So I think it's more appropriate to think that these guys are taking something into account, we don't know what, and everybody else relative to these guys is putting even more emphasis on these things. So all of these characteristics, I think, play into the non-discriminating. We just don't know how to disaggregate that among them from this survey. Okay.